Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode. We are going to be breaking down all things Arsenal versus Fulham. Arsenal swept aside Fulham in a scintillating performance, a 3-0 victory at Craven Cottage that took Arsenal 5 points clear, and that was our 5th win in a row. So I could not be happier. I mean, the football that we watched, it was probably the best football I think that we played all season. You guys can let me know if you think differently, but for me that replaced the Brentford away performance just because I don't know, it was just something about it was just like we are really cooking. And I know Fulham had a couple of chances in the second half, but we well and truly put that game away in the first half. Like it was done within about a 10-minute span. It was done, finito, all those things. So, and we needed that because obviously the Aston Villa game, the Bournemouth game, although those were fun because we had the late winners, I think we just kind of needed something that was like smooth sailing. And I think we also needed confirmation that we're still there. Nobody that watched this pre-World Cup can really, convince me that they haven't seen a little bit of a drop off in our performances, not necessarily the results, but the performances over, the past couple of weeks. And I think a lot of the changes, especially to the front line, has made it difficult to kind of see our football, and especially without Gabriel Jesus. But that football definitely came back. It felt very much like the beginning of the season again, sunshine, where Arsenal were just vibing, and being able to do that, after Manchester City won at the weekend before us under pressure, to play that way against a team that's a difficult opponent to beat, I do think shows that this Arsenal side really do believe in themselves. And if you saw the pictures after the game inside the locker room, Arteta had his slogans and different pictures up to motivate the team. But that big clock that had, the dial on 11. And I like visual things. I like, when I was younger, and I played as well. Like one of the things that one of my coaches did for us was before a final, like he pulled us all over to the side. And this is back when we had boom boxes. He got the boom box and started to play a song and got us all flowers and, talked about how great we were. And he played We Are the Champions. And we won that game. We won that game. But little things like that, little motivational things, visual representation, things like that can really push you over the line. And some of those things work and sometimes they don't. We have the infamous light bulb and, the speakers at London Colony playing You Never Walk Alone. But those things, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but you have to try them. And what I love about Arteta is that he's not afraid to try things to get the team over the line in difficult periods. And I think, having the clock and having the slogans inside the away dressing room, if it gives you just that extra 1% or that extra 2%, who cares? Like, who cares if it looks corny to the outside? If we end up winning the league, all those things are going to end up looking absolutely genius. So I love seeing that after the game. But I do have to talk to you guys about something really, really important. This is really, really important. I've been waiting to talk to you guys about this for a while, and I just wanted to bring it up now. This is a very serious situation. These are the best effing chips I've ever had in my life. You guys, I have a real problem. A very real problem. I eat these by the bag. These Sensations, Thai sweet chili potato chips, these are my crack, okay? I don't like a lot of the things that you guys have cuisine-wise in England, if I'm honest, but one thing you guys got right was these things right here. In the last couple of days, it's probably like my third bag, like killing these. I'm killing those. They're so good. You guys let me know in the chat what your favorite crisps or chips are. It's funny because obviously I still call things fries and I still call these things chips, and you guys do it kind of differently. But let me know in the comment section what you guys think are, or what your favorite crisps are, if you like them or if you don't. But those are fire. Those are fire, okay? Like, of course, your breath doesn't smell very good after, but like, who really cares, okay? Let's see. Deanne says those are crisps. Yeah, they are crisps. I call them chips. They are crisps. Hugo Garcia says Doritos salsa verde. I don't see those very often, the green bag, but those are so good. Those are so good. Those are my second favorite Dorito flavor. My first favorite is spicy nacho. Those things are out of this world, okay? Errol says, good, Jess. Really, I have given up on sweets. I have not. There's also this brand of, I don't have it with me because I ate all of the bars very quickly. But when I got here, I became like a little bit addicted to the dairy milk, the one in the purple thing. And then I had a HelloFresh delivery and they put like a little gift in there and it was from this Tony's Chocolatini or whatever brand. When I tell you, if you like chocolate, that chocolate bar, I mean, just thinking about it, I'm like, my mouth is starting to water. That is the best chocolate I've ever had. It just absolutely just dairy milk ain't nothing compared to that. Okay. But yeah, I'm not giving up any of the junk. I like it. C. Walder says pickled onion, Master Munch, surely. Gotta try those for sure. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Alex says, congratulations on a wonderful win. Leo is a great signing. We will get on to that as well. Let's see. Alusun says, though they are a problem. My house is full of addicts and I'm a classic salt and vinegar man. Never been a big salt and vinegar person, but my best friend loves salt and vinegar. She loves pickles. She loves all that kind of stuff. And so very familiar with that type of flavor pairing can really get you. It really can. John P says, real question is, are you dunking biscuits in tea yet, Jess? No, I am a coffee girl, like through and through. Like I love my coffee. I like, that's more me. So if I'm drinking tea, it's not, maybe I'm not feeling well or something like that. So I'm not quite there yet. Let's see. Mafia Boss says Pringles, sour cream, and chives. Martin N says, talking about crisps, Miss Vicky's jalapeno chips are the best. Those are very good. So at least I know that you guys can be trusted. Like if I need snack recommendations, you guys are going to give decent recommendations. So I love that. But getting into the game, I know that's what you guys really want to talk about. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. The night before, we got a little bit of news. I don't know if you guys were asleep or not, or you guys caught wind of this, but Charles Watts with his first exclusive in like 3 years. What an exclusive it was. He was told Arsenal fans that Trossard and Jesus would be involved in the squad. And I was just like, no way. I had prepared my mind for Trossard and Jesus and Nketiah all to kind of come back after the international break. That is what I was assuming, okay? And then this news was just like such a welcome, I think a welcome surprise, because we had spoken about this in the preview that although I felt like we would win the game, I was a little bit apprehensive about like what the front line was going to look like. I wasn't sure about the front line just because what I had seen against Sporting, which I don't think is a true reflection of those players, obviously, but I didn't feel the vibes of Martinelli, Nelson, and Saka. And I was like, if we have to do that again, I am a little bit worried, going to Craven Cottage, a place that's not easy to go to because it's a good team, a solid team. I don't really want to see a front line that we've never really experienced before and doesn't have much experience with each other, right? So getting that news from Charles Watts for me was like, okay, cool. Let's just hope that is right. Okay. Because there's nothing worse than exclusive gone bad. Okay. But seeing those names on the team sheet, Trossard starting through the middle at center forward and Jesus on the bench, I was like goosebumps. Okay. Like we have done so well to manage the squad throughout difficult periods without our best players. It's not just Gabriel Jesus. We've had times without Thomas Partey as well. And we know that in the past, when we've had our main players out, big players, big personalities, we have not managed them well. And I think having Trossard and Jorginho come in and Kedia performing the way that he did and different players playing their roles has really helped us. I'm looking at this really quick. Can you guys see me and hear me? Can y'all see me and hear me? Hold on. I think it was like a little bit of a lag there. A little bit of a lag. But yeah, having those players play their roles, Reece Nelson coming in, that has really helped us. Tomiyasu playing a game here and there, that's really helped us manage a difficult period when we don't have our best 11. But now those players are back. And looking at that bench, Turner, Holding, I think was on the bench as well. I know he was. Tomiyasu, Tierney, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe, Jesus, Vieira. That is a good bench. I don't think Arteta has ever had a decent bench at Arsenal. I think it's been a while since we've seen an Arsenal team with a bench that has players in attack and players in defense that could really, make a difference. So I was feeling really good about the game once I kind of saw those players back in the side. And that was one thing that I didn't mention. I'll go to the end about we'll talk about that at the end. But seeing those players, especially this face right here, my word. This face. Look at Thomas's face. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but even Thomas's face, like you can tell that like this is a big deal getting Gabriel Jesus back. Okay. He looked fresh. He looked like like he hasn't been out for a super, super long amount of time. And just seeing him just even in the squad was really a real boost. And so, yeah, I think I felt way more confident going into this game once I saw the bench and I saw that Jesus was back. Charles Watts, Lynn says, Charles Watt was spot on, and I was so pleased to see Jesus walk onto the pitch. However, I wouldn't like to take all the hard work Trossard, etc., did away from them because the game was over when Jesus came into the game. I agree. John P. says our squad is looking solid for the run-in, but I'm very worried about them all going off to international duty. We do not have the best record of getting everyone back healthy. That's a good point. Tony says Watts is meh for transfers, but A+++++ for Arsenal news. Matt G says this is huge for us. Him and Partey staying fit is essential. And kind of, piggybacking off of what John P was saying, from an Arsenal perspective, this international break, for me, I feel like it's coming at a bad time just because I do have that, nagging feeling at the back of my, at the back of my head, like, are they all going to come back ready? Are they all going to come back fit? Because Thomas Partey is going for Ghana, and I'm just like, we can't get him back. And he looks like when he comes back from like playing with Ghana, he just looks like a completely different player for some reason. You know what I mean? And I'm happy that Martinelli and, Gabriel Jesus and Gabriel aren't going, but the rest of them, like, I don't want Trossard going to Belgium. Like, I don't want him going there. So, I think this international break is coming at a bad time, but if they can come back from this international break unscathed, I think we're in a good position. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Aha says, Jesus was good when he came on as well. He missed yet another sitter. Yeah, then we knew he was well and truly back. Well and truly back for sure. John P says Trossard means we don't have to rush Jesus back. Exactly. And so, yeah, going into, that game, I felt so much more confident knowing that we had some of our players back. And if things weren't going smoothly, we had some dangerous players on the bench to kind of bring on and to change things up. So going into the game, like, it started off a little bit like, trying to figure out how we were going to get through this Fulham team. I was very happy to see that they did not sit back on us. One of the things that's frustrated me to no end over the last couple of games is just nobody has opened up against us. The only team that did was Manchester City, and we know what happened in that game. But Everton away, Brighton at home, Bournemouth at home, Everton at home, all these teams just kind of sat back in a low block and just frustrated the hell out of us. Leicester, even to a certain extent, just all these teams just kind of countered us and didn't kind of open up. And so what I was hoping was that Fulham would do the thing and they would open up, And yes, they did. They opened up. They tried to press us. They tried to play. They tried to go a little toe to toe. And after the first 15 minutes of us kind of feeling them out, once we scored the offside chance, no, actually, there was a chance that Xhaka had first where it was like a nice move that we put together and Xhaka kind of slid in the box and Leno saved it and it went out for a corner. I was like, okay, we broke through them one time so we can continue to do it from here. Then we had the chance where Xhaka puts it through for Martinelli, and it ended up being offside, but we scored the goal. It was an own goal by Anthony Robinson, and I was like, we are going to cook them because they are not sitting in a low block. And the one thing you can't do against Arsenal is give us any space in behind. Can't give us space in the midfield. We had so much space in midfield. We had so much space in behind, and we were just doing our thing. And early on in the game, you could kind of see Trossard was dropping in deep and linking play and kind of had a free roll. And those things really helped to unlock Martinelli, who I think had a really good game. But he had the offside goal. And from there, you could see Arteta was going like this to kind of like get them to continue on because he knew that we had them. Then from there, we kept creating, chances from there. And we got the opening goal from Gabriel on the header. And from there, I kind of felt like, okay, if we can get a second one from here, we'll probably be really good. But the football that we were playing after like maybe the 15th minute is some of the best football that we've played all season. Everybody was connected. Saliba was on it. I mean, Zinchenko and Thomas Partey were on it. It just seemed like everybody was playing with a freedom and the ball was moving quickly and the rotations were perfect. Those rotations between Trossard and Martinelli were so fun to watch because when Martinelli has a freer role and he can kind of pop up wherever he feels like it, he's so much more dangerous than when he's pinned up against the sideline. And what a lot of us, were kind of calling for was more rotation. And this is no shade on Nketiah. But when him and Martinelli were playing, they didn't have any connection and it was a stagnation on that side. So now that we kind of have that movement again, Martinelli is alive again. And so I thought he had a really good game, but a lot of that came from Trossard playing his role. And my word, what a performance that was. It wasn't just what he was doing on the ball, Trossard. It was what he was doing off the ball, all the pressing and winning the ball back and tracking back and being a real team player. And this is somebody that had a groin injury just a weekend prior and comes back in and puts in a masterclass of a performance that he did. He could have had 3 assists and a couple of goals in this game. And so, I mean, seeing him come in and play the way that he did gives me a lot more confidence going into a difficult period after the break. But it also makes it easier to see how Martinelli is going to be involved in the games because for a while it didn't seem like he was involved, but it wasn't all his fault, if that makes sense. C. Wilder says, I'm rewatching tonight mainly to drool over Partey's performance. He was insane. Like he really, really was. He's not going to get the plaudits or any of the headlines because it's a standard Thomas Partey performance. I think as of late, he's been really, really good. And it was just a standard Thomas Partey performance where he just manages the midfield so well. And we have basically nothing to worry about. Boy says Nketiah is just a between the lines striker. He does not like leaving the width of the goalpost. There will be times for him exactly when he comes back. Obviously, there are times that we want to see Nketiah because he can do different things. He's a really good finisher and stuff like that. But the way that we play in general to make sure that Martinelli is involved and he's one of our most important players. We have to have those rotations. Philip says, finally, the club, and the team and the fans are on the same page. Best performance of the season. It was Gabriel Day yesterday. Lynn says, Mark, you guys are talking to each other. And Hugo Garcia says, Saliba was so good as well, and back to himself. I mean, this is the best center back pairing in the league. It just is. And for a while, I think people were trying to push other agendas and other center backs ahead of these two. But this season, they have been the best center back pairing in the league. 100%. What they allow us to do is so like we've been able with Saliba to just move up a little bit further. Last season, we had moved our lineup because I remember there was a time where we were kind of sitting on the edge of our box trying to build play from there. And it was really hard to move through the thirds. We didn't really have that dominance of territory like we do now. Last season, we moved up just a little bit more with Ben White and Tomiyasu. But with Saliba and Gabriel as the center back pairing, we have moved right up to halfway line. And what they allow us to do is so nice to see. They're fast, they're aggressive, they are good ball playing center backs, and they are playing so well together. Another clean sheet for them. Only Newcastle can match our clean sheet record. That three back there of Ramsdale and Saliba and Gabriel works so well. And I know that Ramsdale had some moments, but even when Fulham tried to make something happen, Ramsdale made the saves, and that kept that clean sheet. And Saliba was just on a whole nother level. I think Gabriel was also on another level, but you saw that swagger from Saliba come back that we haven't really seen from before the World Cup. Saliba's been playing on and off well. Like, I'm not saying he's been terrible or anything like that. I just feel like he had that Saliba thing about him again, and he's so good on the ball. He's so smooth, and when the odd player breaks away, he can just take a couple of steps and he's right there next to them. He made a really good tackle on Dan James at one point in the second half, and I just thought the swagger is back. And Saliba, that shot, you guys, if he had put that in the back of the net, you guys, I think I would have thrown my phone up against like a wall or something, because it was just, it would have been the perfect goal. But the two of them have just been unreal this season. And, at times, I feel like Arsenal fans want to pit the two up against each other. There are big accounts that have done a lot of damage in terms of speaking about Gabriel in a way as though he's some pauper or some average, like kind of center back that needs to be replaced. But the two of them together, it doesn't work if it's not the two of them. The yin and the yang, the balance of the two of them, they had an excellent showing. And Ramsdale with them, I think, if we can continue to play like this for the rest of the season, we could win it. We had to get back to that defense first, keep the shape, take care of business at the back first, make it so that the attacking players of the opposition feel like they have no chance, kind of put water on their fire per se, and then go from there. And I thought that they were freaking amazing. Absis says Saliba feels back to being himself. The Gabby goal came from him just hitting a crossfield ball to Xhaka. Exactly. Davion says mentality monsters, 100% pairing. James, the Voice podcast, says what a great performance to our team. I agree. Hugo says, yes, that juke on two Fulham players. You guys, I would not have lived had that ball went in the back of the net. I just don't think I would have made it, because Saliba is just an unreal player, and we waited so long for him to be inside. And I think Arteta did the right thing, but there was a point in time where it was a little bit like, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Like, what's going to happen? And seeing him with that smile on his face, playing so well with Gabriel and the rest of the back line, I just feel like we hit the jackpot with this one. And so, yeah, I think we're so lucky to have them. Thambella says, Cher and Botman have been brilliant as well, so I wouldn't say they are the best. Well, considering, we have the same amount of clean sheets and we're ahead of them in the league by, what, are they in sixth? I would say that the team that has the center backs with the best, overall record in the league, and we're only like, what, they have how many more goals scored against them? Let's take a look. So Newcastle have 37 they have 18 goals against, and we have 25 goals against. So they do have way less goals scored against them, but we have 62 goals for, and they have 37 goals for. We are currently 22 points ahead of them in the table, and our back line, our center backs are also scoring goals. So I think from that perspective, Gabriel and Saliba are a part of the back line that is leading Arsenal to potentially their first title in 18 years. And Newcastle, although they've played well, they have drawn a lot of games, and our defense is helping us win a lot more games than they are. So yeah, we could sit back in our box and defend and play on the counterattack and probably have only 18 goals scored against us. But what does that really do for you attacking wise? So from my perspective, it's no contest. As good as Botman and Cher have been, Saliba and Gabriel are clear. And it's not even close. In my perspective, in my feeling on that, it's not really close. Mark says we play a vastly more expansive style of play compared to Newcastle. We are far more open, cannot compare. Exactly. Mamang, if they are playing a high line, they will be more exposed. Well, if you look at and this is no shade on Newcastle, at some point they will be a superpower, right? Like, this is no shade on them, but every time that they attempt to play a high line, they get absolutely annihilated. When they played against Liverpool and Nick Pope was got a red card and was out, for the Carabao Cup final. They played a high line against Liverpool and got absolutely annihilated. And so, yeah, if you sit back in a mid to low block and you play on the counterattack, your defense looks better. I remember a couple of seasons ago, we had a very similar kind of like defensive, record where we had only conceded like 19 goals or some nonsense like that, but we couldn't score any goals. And we were sitting back, in 3 at the back and playing a more pragmatic system. And yeah, we had the good defensive principles and we were stopping teams from scoring, but we weren't able to score either, So Saliba and Gabriel are clear of everyone, in terms of a backline pairing. I would say, obviously Manchester City would come into that debate as well because, they're amazing, but at the same time, like, they don't always have the same back two. So it's Gabriel and Saliba. Sorry, it just is. Tony says there's no debate. External factors, rotation aside, our front three is Nelly. So you guys are talking about the front line. So those two played so well, as along with Ramsdale, for sure. But I know that, people really want to talk about Trossard and what a signing he's been. I've seen so many, comparisons to Santi Corzola and, him being Arjata as well. And I think you could use from a playing style, standpoint, he's probably more of a Carzola, but in terms of impact, he's probably more of a Diego Jota for us. Somebody that can play across the front three, maybe even in the midfield as well. And if we had to play him there, but comes straight into the side and makes us so much more sturdy and solid in terms of the options that we have up front. He just knows what to do and he can play our football. I mean, we looked so fluid with him up there. He was immense. The corners, I think, we struggled over the last couple of weeks in terms of getting the most out of our dead ball scenarios. Some of our corners have not been that great. And the ball that he hits to Gabriel for the first goal is perfect. It's pinpoint. It's right on the top of his head. And I know some people are like, well, corners, if you do corners and you get assists, they're not really assists. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, because you still have to do well. We notice when they're not done well. So when they are done well, you should give them credit. And so the first assist was amazing. The second assist right onto Gabriel Martinelli's head for the back post header. And then the third one to Odegaard. I mean, what a performance from a guy that was like injured, like not too long ago. And he's definitely the January signing of the season. Like, there's nobody close to him in terms of impact and like that instant impact, getting him for 21 million is an absolute steal. And he broke a record for the first player in Premier League history to have a hat trick of assists in the first half of an away match. And so I will take that. I will take that. And we know that one of his big attributes is like scoring goals, but assisting as well is so important. It's so underrated. I feel like people don't always talk about the players that assist, but it's a goal contribution, and you have to have players that are calm in those scenarios to pick the right pass at the right time. And Arteta spoke about that in terms of Trossard, that when players get in those scenarios, some of them, it gets cloudy for them. They can't really slow it down and see where the pass is supposed to go. But he has that composure, like Odegaard, he has that composure as well. And so having the two of them in the side, I mean, the tech on show for Arsenal in yesterday's game was something I haven't seen in a long time from an Arsenal team. There was a time not too long ago where I know we were screaming, we need more technical players in this team. There's not enough tech. And when you have Trossard and Odegaard and Zinchenko in your team, and that's not to slight Thomas Partey and Saka and these guys, because they are technical ballers as well. But I think those three in particular just take you to a whole nother level in terms of what you can do on the ball. So yeah, for me, I am getting a Trossard kit. Number 19 is my favorite number. And no offense to Pepe, but I was not getting Pepe. But now that we have like a new little magician, and Trossard is just, I'm getting number 19 Trossard. I'm getting it because he is absolutely ridiculous. Like I love him. I love him. Boy says Trossard is a genius. Lynn says, Jess, you can see that Trossard is enjoying his football. He is playing with a smile. But at Brighton, he always looks quite miserable. Well, I would say that, Trossard, from my perspective, always looks like he has stayed up late at night and has dark circles around his eyes. And I don't really know what that's all about, but he is playing with a lot of confidence, and he looks like he's happy to get his dream move. We know that he's an Arsenal fan. He's always wanted to play for Arsenal, and to get his move mid-season after a move from Mudryk breaks down, and to come to Arsenal mid-season and could potentially win his first Premier League, title. I mean, that's insane for a player. So I really think that like this was the perfect signing. And I know like I've been getting this a lot in the last couple of days. Well, aren't you so happy you didn't get Mudryk? Not necessarily, because Arteta really wanted Mudryk and so did Edu. So from my perspective, they saw a player in there. But in terms of for this season, with what we need right now in order to potentially win the Premier League, I think it's the perfect signing. And again, he's like our Santi Cazorla type player that can play off of the left wing and can play in midfield and is so technically sound with both feet. But the impact that he has for me is like a Diego Jota, somebody that just shores up the frontline options and gives you a little bit of Premier League experience to kind of just underpin what you already have. John McDermott says, all of the Arsenal kits I've got, I've never put another man's name on it, but Gabriel Jesus had to be the first. I agree. Like Gabriel Jesus is a game changer for us. And I don't know, I just absolutely love the kids so much. And if that was the first name that you put on the back of your shirt, that's a good one to choose. Mark says, I'm so pleased with how Trossard has integrated into the team and positive vibes. He looks like he's been with us since the process, easily fitted into the team and can play. Great addition. Philip says, I would rather Trossard stay central and we buy another winger to compete with Saka. I'm pretty sure that that's what's going to happen in the summer. We have kind of been searching for, I think, the perfect right winger. It can't just be anybody. I think it has to be a left-footed right winger that can play similar to Saka, so we can keep those vibes going on that side. But it also can't just be some like kid that's not actually going to push Saka. It needs to be, we were willing to pay a significant amount for Rafinha. And I think that's the level of player that Arsenal are going to look for to come onto that right-hand side, because we don't have any sort of like backup for Saka. We're going to talk about Saka in a minute as well. But yeah, I think that's the next thing that's going to happen, and that will round up our attacking options quite well. Let's see what you guys are saying. Triple C says, a week ago, it was feared that both Trossard and Jesus will be out until after the international break. Out of nowhere, they both play against Fulham. Why do we even bother watching Arteta's press conferences? What a liar. What a liar. Mikel Arteta sat there and said, we're going to have to learn how to adjust because Trossard is not going to be available, and Jesus, it's days, not weeks. And I love those mind games, because it just keeps people on their toes and makes it difficult for people to prepare against us. They may have prepared for Martinelli and they turned around and saw Trossard and was like, oh shit, we're in for it today. So I love that. I love that. Let's see. Yeah, Errol's saying loads of choices now up front, Jess. Exactly. So yeah, I think that the front three played really well in my opinion. I think the fluidity and the connection just seemed to come very, very natural. But Trossard had such a special performance against Fulham away from home, and he's just one of those types of players that really just shows up for you. And so I was so impressed by his performance. And yeah, I mean, what else can you really say? There's 266 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I know that was awful. All right. Right, oh boy, thank you so much for your super chat. You're saying the problem is that we need someone happy to be back up to Saka. Well, I think you're happier if you know you're going to get like Champions League group stage minutes and cup, minutes and stuff like that. And I think even from a Saka perspective, like as good as Saka is, like we need players that are going to push for starting positions. The thing about Trossard that really stood out to me, especially when Ramsdale said it, is that I don't think Trossard came to Arsenal feeling like, okay, well, I'm just going to be a backup to Jesus and Martinelli and I'm not going to ever play. Does that look like a player that is going to just accepting a bit part role? No. And I know that Saka's different because he's our franchise player. He's the face. But if they bring in a quality right winger, Saka's also going to have to fight for his position. And that's every single player needs to fight for their position. There's nobody in the team that should be sitting there except for the goalkeeper should be sitting there thinking, you know what, I am fine. I don't need to, regardless, rain, sunshine, clouds, I'm starting no matter what. And so I think Saka is no different and will be no different because if they're willing to invest a significant amount in a right winger, they're not just going to be sitting on the bench all the time. And I don't think Arteta is going to breed a culture that's, okay, well, certain players are always going to start no matter what, and there's no chance. Which you even see in like Martinelli, he was dropped or rotated, whatever you want to say, but he was left out of a match. Xhaka was left out as well. And so as the options become better, I think Arteta feels more comfortable making decisions on who starts. He has more headaches than he did before. So yeah, I understand that like maybe somebody would have to be okay with a backup position, but at the same time, like the player that comes in, I don't think is going to be sitting there like, well, I'm just going to take this. We have to have that type of mentality where everybody's fighting for their position. And Arteta even said that, here's another super chat I started, that even Jesus is going to have to fight for his position and earn it back because the players that are already playing in those positions are playing well. And although I do think that like, if Nketiah was playing 100%, I do think Jesus kind of comes straight back in when he's fit. But because it's Trossard and they play kind of similar and Trossard's kind of like doing his thing, I do think Gabriel Jesus is going to have to, really get going because, and that's a good thing because if he feels like his spot is under threat, he will play hard. He always plays hard, but he'll be chomping at the bit even more. When he gets those chances and he misses those big chances, he's going to really have to think about those because there is a player sitting on the bench that is desperate to take your spot. Ramsdale said Trossard is not coming in to just sit on the bench. He's coming to take a starting position. And Ramsdale, yeah, he talks a lot. And maybe he shouldn't have said that, but I like that he said that because people need to know, like, players that are on the bench are willing to take your spot if you're not up to it. Right, oh boy, thank you so much for your second super chat. You're saying Pepe is Nice's top goal scorer this season. So if we can't get rid of him, he could be back up. I think he's finished at Arsenal, but I hear you. John P says sell Eddie or Balogun now. We have Trossard. We only need 3 number 9s. And Martinelli is an option now, I think. This is being spoken about in a lot of the group chats that I'm in, what to do with Eddie or Balogun. That's summer talk, I think. We've given Eddie a big contract with a significant amount of wages attached to it. So I'm not sure what team would be willing to pay Eddie that amount. And then Balogun is somebody that I do think the club want to keep, but there's also going to be clubs that are interested in taking him off our hands this summer. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to have both of them in the side ever. I just don't see it, you know? So I think a decision will have to be made some way or another, but, um, it's a conversation I think for the summer because, you know, who knows now, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, but Trossard was extra, extra special. And I mean, everybody was. I mean, Thomas Partey was out of this world. Odegaard was out of this world. The center backs were great. Ben White, his crossing was really nice. He had a one cross, I think, with his left foot to the back post that Martinelli really should have put away. And so all those players played really well. One player that I do want to talk about, though, is Bukayo Saka. And I think, with Saka, there is a narrative building that he's tired and that people are starting to get that paranoia and that like, oh my gosh, is he going to get injured? I'm so scared he's going to get injured, this and that. And I actually thought he was fine yesterday. I know some people were saying like pulling up the times that he lost the ball in the first half or whatever. And saying, okay, yeah, that means that he's tired. We need to sit him down. Anthony Robinson was in hell in that first half. When the commentary that I was watching, though the commentators were talking about how bad of a day Anthony Robinson was having to deal with Saka. But the difference is when you have Trossard and Martinelli and they're playing well and we put the game away within 20 minutes, I don't think Saka has to carry us as much. And so I don't think it was his best performance, but I don't like when the fan base kind of makes up a narrative about a player being tired when I'm not sure that I actually believe it, whether it's just him just going through a sticky patch in form. I think that we have an underlying anxiety around Saka getting injured and he plays so many minutes that anytime he doesn't play well or he's not 100%, he's tired, you got to take him out. But the reality is that like Saka probably from now until the end of the season is probably not going to sit. He's the only player that we don't have any sort of competition or like for like replacement for. When he's not there, we feel the difference and he has to come on anyway to save us. And so I don't see him not playing against Sporting. We need to get through and we need to play probably a strong-ish lineup against Sporting. So I don't see him getting a rest there. And not against Crystal Palace because we got to get them those points, not against Leeds, not against anybody. So I think Saka just needs to play through the sticky patch of form. The fitness, like the people that are, are in charge, the medical team, I think they know whether or not Saka's in the red zone and they wouldn't risk him if he was. So I'm seeing this narrative build and I'm just wondering if it's actually based on facts or if it's based on an underlying anxiety about Saka and the minutes that he's playing and the fact that he rarely gets a rest. But Arteta said the best players play every 3 days. And so for me, it's not a worry. I just don't think he was at 100% yesterday. But even his not 100% had Anthony Robinson in hell yesterday. So, I mean, I don't know. And when I rewatched the game, I thought Saka had some really good touches. He wasn't as involved as he usually is, but at the same time, we didn't need him to save us. Aha says, did you see towards the end of the Sporting game where Arteta was going mad at White and Saka for not running back? He's played nearly 70 Premier League games in a row. Well, them not tracking back is not 100% them being tired per se. That could just be that they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. These are players that, like from my perspective, maybe they aren't at 100% and they are hitting a little bit of a wall. But at the same time, like there's a difference between like a player that's not at 100% and like needs to sit. Again, like a 70 to 80% Ben White and Saka is probably better than the other options that we have. So I feel like this narrative is like he didn't play well, so he needs to sit. I don't know if I believe it just because he could have just not had a great game. Alasoon says Saka is playing like he did at the beginning of the year when he had a strong left side bias. He's trying to be more defensively disciplined to let the left side cook. The Gooner 66 Scorpio says Saka doesn't take anyone on. He is always looking for a cutback inside left and pass back. He needs a break, or that's what he's being asked to do. Tony says Saka took Anthony Robinson on early on in the game and got tripped up. And a lot of the game I saw was like a lot of Fulham players just kind of like running into Saka and pushing him down and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think we've built this up in our heads based on the amount of minutes that he's played, and we've decided that he's tired rather than the club actually deciding it, because if they were afraid that Saka was going to break down, I'm sure that they would do what's right. Boy says Saka does not rest. John says, although I did hear Arsenal were doing extra training to last longer on the pitch without being tired. Nashville says this time of season, nobody is 100%. I kind of agree with that. C. Walder says, I've been wondering if it's actually been an instruction to relieve Saka of some duty, kind of like resting him while he's still on the pitch. There's been a lot going down on the left and in the last few games. When Eddie was playing, Saka was kind of like our number one player. Like Nketiah really, because he's so stationary, the left-hand side was a lot more clunky, and we didn't really have that same fluidity on that side. And Saka was heavily carrying us during those times. So I don't know. I feel like the combination of him not being super involved plus him maybe not having the best game has created a perfect storm to bring out a narrative of him needing to sit when maybe it's just like he just didn't have a great game, and I also think like this, like Abscess was saying, Saka was just chilling and still 7 out of 10 performance against Sporting. I don't think like Saka also did this against Manchester City. I remember this narrative came out again when we played against Manchester City in the FA Cup, and Saka just wasn't really in the game. He was out there, but he wasn't really in the game. And people, he didn't have a good game. He must be tired. He's playing too many games. And the very next game, he was cooking again. I don't know. I really do think that like Saka knows when to go 100%, when not to, and maybe Arsenal are kind of like, okay, you're playing a lot of minutes, maybe you're not at 100%. Let's just ease off of the pressure on you. I'm sure they have gears. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel we're making that up. I have to be honest. Mark says the whole Saka is tired is a miss. This guy is played out of his skin. No one questions any Liverpool player that has busted their ass for 4 years. We're nitpicking. El Dennis says he should just rest. We all do need a rest. This has nothing to do with injury or yesterday's game. But I mean, he did rest at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, when we were playing in the Europa League, in the group stages, Marquinhos played off of the right. Saka did get rest. So if you're saying he needs a rest off of a Premier League game, you are high. He's not ever going to rest during a Premier League game. So, when is this rest supposed to come about? Like, I don't understand. Like, and who's going to step in for him? Because again, we don't really have another option. And Saka's become predictable to me as a little bit of a reach as well. Saka, like before the, let's see, the Everton game at home, I think that was that game. And before that, like Aston Villa, those games kind of in between in that kind of touchy period, Saka was like our best player. Players have seasons where it's like Martinelli is now coming back to the forefront, and then Saka is not as influential. At the beginning of the season, Jesus was super influential, and then when Jesus went out, Odegaard became more influential. You guys, like, come on, like he's not predictable. Like just a couple of games ago, he smashed it into the roof of the net against Everton, and then like a game or two before that, he hit a volley on it with his left foot into the back of the net against Aston Villa. Like, hello? Like, I don't understand. Errol says, who plays against Sporting Jess year 11? I mean, I don't really want to spoil the preview because I want to do a preview for that game in the next couple of days. But I want to play a strong lineup, to be honest, because I want to go through. I think we can battle on two fronts. I think momentum is key. It's a chance at a trophy. And so if you think I'm going to say play all the kids, I'm not. So, yeah. Blaze says, I didn't see Madrid or City fans worried about Haaland and Vinicius like we do with Saka. Some Arsenal fans need to leave manager to do the job. Stop telling them what they need to do. Soham says Saka isn't taking on players. He has the most take-ons in the Prem. The underlying metrics, the metrics are not on your side, people. I've seen some narratives that they're not really connected. The narratives aren't narrativing, you know? Absis says, isn't Saka up there with the most take-ons in the league? Exactly. I don't think that Saka necessarily needs a rest. I think he didn't have the most amazing game against he was out there against Sporting, kind of playing half speed, like the rest of the team, because everybody was pretty crap against Sporting. And then he was not really that needed against Fulham because they did it all in like 10 minutes. But when I rewatched the game, I thought he did some really nice things. He definitely didn't have his best game, but let's not, I mean, I just don't think we need to make it up. But if you feel like you're seeing fatigue, I get that, but I personally disagree. Let's see. Nashville says, I'd like to see KT, Tommy, and J20 come on against Sporting other than strong 11. Samful says 90% of the time Saka gets the ball, he will drive and try to cut inside so to get a shot similar to how Messi was at Barca or Robin at Bayern. This is why I say he has become predictable. Then why can't they stop him? If he's so predictable, then why is he still able to score goals and get assists? I'm confused. Like, that's the thing. It's like predictability would mean that, maybe his production has stopped, and I don't really think it has. So, yes, Saka lost the ball, but that doesn't necessarily, losing the ball doesn't necessarily mean you were tired. It could just mean that you didn't have a good game. So again, like, it's just, I feel like we're just kind of, we really are trying to put 2 and 2 together, P. Trim says, Jess, it's just a different dynamic with Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, Odegaard. Saka doesn't have to be the go-to guy. I agree. Boy says, you men are all watching Saka so closely. Opposition team should hire you to tell how to stop him. Righto Boy, thank you so much for your super chat. Says quarterfinals minimum we need to go through. I agree. Yo-Yo says agendas run rife in football discourse. For me, it's so easy to put 2 and 2 together. And I see this anytime that Saka doesn't have a great game, especially if he's played midweek in like a cup competition or something like that. The next day is he tired? Do we need to sit him? And I get where it comes from, is because we have so many scars from Wilshere and, like other players that we've had that have been so special, but have had so many injury issues. But I'm a little bit like afraid to attach he is tired and needs to sit. 1, because I don't think he will. And 2, I just think he didn't have a great game, Let's see. Terrence Tibbs says Saka is a constant threat. Mark Neighbor says there is a video of Arteta explaining about the cut inside, nothing to do with a shot. It's to do with running onto the ball, pass into space. He does not want wingers with back to goal and no movement. So it's one of those that I just wanted to bring up because I seen the narrative kind of floating around, and I was like, okay, here we go. We're starting to, talk about things and things that may not be happening. But overall, yesterday was a fantastic match where I think we were just on another level, and we just needed an easy kind of, not easy, but a game where we look like us. And yesterday really felt like we were looking at an Arsenal team that was playing with freedom free flowing. Even when we beat Everton, it didn't feel the same. Even though we beat them 4-0, like it didn't feel like this. And it was the perfect away performance. I thought everybody was on, like even the subs that came in, I thought such a good cameo for like Reece Nelson, Vieira, Tomiyasu, Kieran Tierney, getting all those players in there to kind of like feel that, the vibes was really, really good. And you could just tell that everybody is just so happy. And this is a team that had Manchester City win a game, go within 2 points of them, and they turned around and put in a performance like that. And we basically nullified Fulham to nothing. I know that Marco Silva kind of came out and was like, nothing that they did was due to the win wasn't due to their quality. It was because we were just so poor. And sometimes you being up for it and stopping a couple of their opportunities early makes him just be like, I don't feel like doing it. You know how many times I've watched, Liverpool and Manchester City over the last couple of years play against decent sides that just say, you know what, they get a couple of their chances knocked back, and Manchester City and Liverpool just kind of turn up the heat a little bit and they just quit. And that's happened quite a few times for Arsenal this season. And I don't think you can take that away from Arsenal. Yes, Fulham did not play well, but we made them play poorly. And so it's on you. You shouldn't have opened up. You shouldn't have opened up. Terrence Tibbs says Fulham are a difficult team at Craven Cottage. Sir Nicholas says Jesus being on the bench made us look like a pre-World Cup Arsenal again. I agree. Akinola said, why did it look like we struggled in the second half when we were already up and had 3 goals in the first half? Game state. Game state. I don't even know if I would say that we struggled. They had about 10 minutes in the second half where they tried a little bit. They had 2 dead ball scenarios. One where Adebayo or whatever his name is got, headed the ball in, and it hit the bar. And then they had another like really well worked one where he also got around the backside of I think Martinelli and headed the ball across, and Ramsdale had to come out and save it. But for me, like if you look at the XG and you really like after those kind of 10 minutes, the rest of the half, we really just kind of dominated. And I think it would have been unlikely that Fulham would have come out in the second half and not tried to do something, because I'm sure Marco Silva got into them. But once it was 3-0, like game state, we didn't have to be 100%. I think maybe we kind of switched off a little bit, but they had a couple of little half chances, but even a lot of the shots that they were getting were just kind of like dribbling over to Ramsdale and, or easily collected and stuff like that, beyond them hitting the bar and getting that one, where Adebayo went around the corner and Ramsdale had to save it. Like they really didn't do anything. And again, even in a half where you're thinking that we struggled, we could have scored a couple of goals in the second half anyway. So the game was over in the first half. And, I don't think we struggled, I think is kind of like maybe a little bit too far. If you think that a team is not going to get a single chance in a game in the Premier League, I think that's a little bit like fantasy land. Like we killed the game off in the first half. They came out and tried, because I'm sure Marco Silva gave him hair dryer treatment. They tried for about 10 minutes. They didn't get anywhere with it. And we controlled the half for the rest of the time. Mark is saying here, we were in second gear. Game was over. See the game out. No need to bust your ass. We were 3-0 up. Game management. Philip says we were saving energy. The only game that I've ever seen us play where the other team had no chances whatsoever was Leicester away. That was it. Not a single chance. So it's very it's very unlikely. So yeah. Martin N says second half felt like a friendly to me. Exactly. Game was over. Richie Rabbit says mentally it was hard after halftime when the game was already won. We started to kick up again once we had the subs come in, and then we started to, like, Martinelli had a really good chance where it was like one of those, another really well worked goal or well worked chance where I think he shot it with his left foot. He tried to go across Leno. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus had his chance, so we had more chances. Reece Nelson was also had a nice slip ball into him from Gabriel Jesus. He probably should have just crossed it. So again, we had other chances in the second half, but the game was done. It really was. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Blaze says, Jess, what's your thought on Arteta's 100 wins and 147 games at Arsenal? Are you impressed with those stats? Yeah, because he's gotten to 100 wins quicker than I think Arsene and Sir Alex Ferguson. And so it's a really good, I think that's a really good for him. And I think for a while, we some of us were not, it's 167, but I think a lot of us were not sure if he was going to make it this far. I didn't think I wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure whether he'd get this far, but I'm glad he has, because he's really changed this club and brought us back to a place where we feel like we're competitive. And so I'm really happy about that. I think Arteta is going to be our manager for a long time. I think he's happy at Arsenal. And I hope he is, because he could end up being so special. Like, we're looking at somebody that could be, what do they call him? Like when you're young, like a prodigy type. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And so, he's doing a fantastic job. And, after all the times where it was up and down and I wasn't sure, and there were times where I wanted him out and stuff like that, I'm glad it's worked out, because it seems like the perfect fit for us. You don't always need the best manager. You need the best manager for you, if that makes sense. And he fits us like a glove. So and what I met was a prodigy. Tony says, pre-ESR Boxing Day, I was getting close to Arteta out. Today, I wouldn't trade him for any manager in the world. I agree. Sir Nicholas says, we look like Arsenal again. Arteta could have won 80 games at this point, and I'd be thrilled if this was the product. Let's see. Jose says, hands off our manager, Real Madrid. He ain't going there. He's not going there. Be for real. Let's see. Don One says, Arsenal plays some beautiful football. The build up to the second goal was unreal. There were so many goals. The second goal was amazing. But even there was the Xhaka chance, that would have been goal of the season had he put that away. And he actually had a really good game as well. So he started to look like the Xhaka from the pre-World Cup as well. And so, I think we were playing some really, really nice football. Yo-Yo says he needs silverware to go with his records. He needs his day in the sun. He said that. He said it's not a trophy. Arteta is very focused on winning things. And so I don't think he's sitting there I made it to 100 wins. But I think we're going to win silverware with him. Richie Rabbit says, Jess, do you think Nelson can be effective enough on the left wing? Yes. I do. Not in terms of do I think he's ever going to be Saka and Martinelli? Maybe not. But when you saw him switch over to the left side and Vieira went to the right, I thought Nelson looked a lot better there and had a couple of really good runs and some good moves. One where he kind of swiveled and got past his marker and put in a good cross for Odegaard. There was another one where he had a nice cutback for and nobody was there. And then there was the slip ball in where he probably should have hit it first time. But I do think Reece Nelson can be a good squad player for Arsenal, because he plays our way as well. You don't have to teach him the Arsenal way. He already knows. Nathan says, keep up the great work, Jess. Come on, you Gunners. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Mark Neighbor says, I always say I am more about the badge over everything, and Arteta has made me fall in love with Arsenal again. I got to a point 3 or 5 years ago where I started to fall out of love with the club. I think a lot of people felt that way. I wouldn't say that I fell out of love. I would say that I just felt disconnected from the players that were wearing the badge. There just wasn't any connection. They didn't feel like Arsenal players. It was hard to get into them. And now every time I look at one of the Arsenal players, I'm he's my favorite. No, he's my favorite. Now he's my favorite now. And I think it just speaks to we just really love this team, and Arteta has done a really good job, and Edu, to put this team together, a team that we look at and see Arsenal in them, if that makes sense. Let's see. Marvel says, we are beginning to form a Champions League team. We just need a little additions in the summer. I agree. Hugo says, Xhaka had a backheel pass to Martinelli, who should have tucked it in the near post. I remember that. That was really good. There's so many moves. There's so many moves in this game that could have, and it could have been 5 or 6. It really could have. Briarland says, Arsenal DNA all the way. Something about the names as well. Arsenal, Arteta, Arsen. That's funny. I didn't really think of Arteta that way, but yeah, there is something about that. Yas says Arteta is a visionary, and this is only the beginning of philosophy. Marco says, who is your player of the season so far? I'm struggling to name a clear winner. At times it's Odie, at times Martinelli, at times Saka. This is an interesting question. I want to know from all of you guys, like, who is your player of the season so far? Who is your player of the season? I want to know what you guys are thinking about this, because again, like, I'm very similar to like you, where I look at different players and I'm like, so and so, it's so and so, it's so and so. I mean, I think it has to be Saka. It's either Saka or Odegaard for me. I think because Odegaard is the captain, and he's leading by example, but he's also like leading with goals and assists, and he does a lot for the team. He's a well-rounded player, and he's not just a luxury player like for us. And he just exemplifies everything about what Arsenal is right now. So for me, like, nothing really happens unless Odegaard is on the pitch. And then Saka, I think those are the two that I think of. It's either the franchise player or the captain for me. It's one of those two for sure, but it could be anybody. But yeah, it's Saka or Odegaard for me, for sure. And it's not like Partey is still for me like probably our like most important player or something. Like, I don't know how to explain it, because Saka's our most important player and so is Odegaard, but we just miss something so badly when Partey isn't there. But I don't think he's leading us. I think Saka and Odegaard are leading us. So as good as Partey has been, I don't think I could call him player of the season. I think Gabriel for me is also somewhere in that conversation, probably just a level below Odegaard and Saka, just because he's ever present back there. He plays in Europa League, he plays in the league, he's gone to another level. Gabriel for me is an unsung hero that doesn't get anywhere near as much credit as he should. And I'm sure we would be having conversations about Gabriel Jesus had he not got injured, but he has. So I would say like Saka or Odegaard for sure. Triple C says Zinchenko, though. Zinchenko for me is not player of the season just because he missed so much time kind of like in the beginning of the season. But he's kind of like in the shout, like he's but it's, for me, it's either the franchise player or the captain. It's one of those two for me. But we have so many options because everybody's been playing so well. Nathan says Saka has been amazing, but TP is the glue. Terrence Tibbs says George Graham was a coach who inspired, had attention to detail, and built strong mentality. That's very different from Wenger and Arteta. Okay. A lot of people are saying Saliba. Mark says, but it cannot be Saka. He has been tired and on his legs for the past month. Exactly. Don One says, don't forget about Xhaka's leadership. I mean, we have so many options, and that's the great thing, right? It's just, for me, it's either Saka or Odegaard, and then you have the level below of like, Partey, Gabriel, Zinchenko maybe. Saliba, Ramsdale, Gabriel, it could be anybody. Yo-Yo says, I think the Premier League and the club player of the year will be different if Arsenal win the title. I think the Premier League and Club Player of the Year will be different if Arsenal win the title. If Arsenal win the title, I think from a Premier League perspective and people outside of Arsenal, they would think that our player of the season is Saka. But people inside Arsenal, I think some of us would have a different opinion on that. John P says Jesus changed everything for me. I mean, he was definitely a catalyst for sure. Hugo says Trossard, if he keeps it up. I don't know. He's only been here half the season. He will have only been there half the season. There's so much legwork done at the beginning. Like, if we're not the way we started, you guys, like back in like the summer when we were in preseason. Remember when we beat Chelsea? And I think that Chelsea game, that preseason game, is when I knew we would be good. I was like, we're gonna finish in the top 4 for sure. When I saw that game, and that was all led us into this. And so those games, that we played at the beginning of the season that didn't feel like anything but vibes has given us a foundation to do this at the end of the season with 11 games to go. And so for me, Trossard and Jorginho are two players that, will probably help us win the title for sure. And if we do not have them, we probably don't win it. But the legwork was done, a lot of it before. You have to look at like those performances early on from Saka, from Martinelli, from Odegaard, from Jesus, from Saliba and Gabriel. Hello. I think Ben White probably would fall into like the most improved category, I think, because he's an insane player that I feel like has went up a level as well. Let's see. Maximia says, Jess, do you think it's good we are getting the international break now? One hand, we are entering momentum. Other side, players like Saka are so tired. Your opinion? It depends. Like, I just don't think we have a good track record of getting our players back in good in one piece. But I would hope all of our players are smart enough to play on half speed. It's just Nations League or whatever. It's not that important, or it's not more important than us winning the title. So I'm really glad that our Brazilian players are not going. But I hope TP and, players like that kind of like chill out and realize that we have business to take care of. But it depends. If we beat Crystal Palace, and we beat Sporting, it might come at a bad time because we're hitting momentum. But, when we came back from the World Cup, I thought we looked really good as well. So we'll see. Let's see. Blaze says, Jess, do you think Gabriel Magalhaes is underrated? He's a beast in 2023. I feel like since last season, he became one of the best defenders in the league. Yeah, I think like Ben White, there was a lot of damage done early on in his Arsenal career because people started to attach things to them. Like from Gabriel, he was labeled a bozo by rivals and by the media and stuff like that. Even like early on in the game, yesterday, the commentator was like, when Andreas Pereira ran into Gabriel, it was a clear foul. And if it hadn't been so early on in the game, it probably would have been a yellow card. And Pereira said something to Gabriel, and Gabriel said something back. And he could let the emotion take over and all this kind of stuff. When Gabriel's been really good this season to not let that happen, he has been labeled a bozo. And so people have not looked at any of the work that he does. All they do is look at the mistakes that he makes, or the odd time where he makes a mistake in possession or whatever. And it's taken a long time to kind of untangle that. And so I think Arsenal fans are the first people that need to like start to push Gabriel a little bit more. I still think that there's a heavy bias towards Saliba and not enough, for Gabriel. But I think he is really underrated. There's not a lot of center backs with his profile. 6'4", good on the ball, aggressive, front-footed defender, good in one-on-ones, fast, good in the air, scores goals, and he's only 25. And there's not a lot of players out there like that. And for us to get him for like 27 million, it's insane. So, yeah, I think Gabriel is definitely underrated. For sure. I mean, but then you also have like big accounts that go around, and lots of Arsenal fans read those accounts, and they say things like we should get rid of Gabriel for Schlotterbeck, and it's just like, okay, wow. Let's see. John P says, I'm looking at the Man City game. Fingers crossed we have Jesus and Partey. I really want to beat them. That's the game. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying not to look that far forward, but yeah, I agree. We need to have our best team available for that game, I think. Yo-Yo says Bozo shows how poor football discourse is. Yeah, exactly. There's just, once you label somebody a bozo, it's really hard to like get rid of it. And, I think we've done quite a bit of damage to Gabriel, but then like the media picks up on it and then boom, And so, and I think Ben White and Gabriel both suffered because they weren't Saliba. We went through a long period of time where people were pining for Saliba so badly that, there was a lot of, Gabriel, he's not Saliba. Oh, Ben White, he's not Saliba. And so Arsenal fans have to take some of the credit here on why Gabriel's not getting the plaudits that he probably should. But those things will change, I think, especially if we win the league. Gabriel he's so good. I mean, he really, really is. And like there was a minute where people were like, oh, Kivior, he might take Gabriel's spot. I think he's got a long way to go, Maximia says Mustafi was a bozo. Lionide says Gabriel Magalhaes more influential than Saliba this season. I would expect him to be because he's been around longer. Gabriel is the seasoned professional back there. He's been in the league for 3 years now, and Saliba has gone through his first year in the Premier League teething process. That's why when people are like, Saliba, he's not perfect. What is he doing? Oh my God, he made a bad pass. I'm like, well, what do you expect? It's his first year in the Premier League. Like, he's still young. Like, hello. DJ says, which player will be Xhaka Partey replacement for the future? I don't even want to think about those things now, but I'm sure the club is looking at players. We know that we looked at Caicedo. We're heavily linked to Declan Rice, and Vieira has been coming in quite a bit for that left 8 position for Xhaka. So we'll see. We'll see. Those are conversations a little bit down the road, but yeah, I'm sure we'll be looking at those coming this summer. But really enjoyed this convo, you guys. It's been amazing. There's 230 of you guys in here. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. I will be on the football terrace in about 10 minutes. So if you guys want to pop on over there, we're doing the top 6 show. Arsenal fans get to sit there in all their glory while we talk about Manchester United dropping points to Southampton, as well as Liverpool losing to Bournemouth, and all those fun things to talk about. So make sure you guys join us there. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.